What is up, guys? Red Reject here, and today we're going to be doing something different. With Sony announcing that they will be focusing more on exclusives and bringing back games from their massive backlog, I decided we're going to switch it up and do a top 10 PlayStation games that Sony should bring back. If you like the video, feel free to stick around. I make a lot of varied content and you never know what you might be interested in. But with the introductions out of the way, we will start with our number 10. At number 10, we got Warhawk. Any of the OG PlayStation 3 gamers back in the day will tell you that Warhawk was the game to play if you wanted large-scale battles. The game supported up to 32 players at one time, and other than the Battlefield, was one of the only few large-scale games at the time. You might say MAG was one of those, or like a very few amount of big Battlefield-like games. There were not that many of them, so while the game was fun, it did have really cool vehicles. Like we're talking about the Warhawk, the floating airplane type vehicle that the game is named after. And I still remember like running people over with the 4x4, and I gotta say it's a great game. Sony should definitely pick it up again, make a remake, and drop it down on PlayStation 5 or 6. You know, just putting that out there. At number 9, we got Siren. Sony doesn't have a lot of horror games. I do have to admit, they have Last of Us, they have Days Gone. That's kind of it. But, you know, back in the day, it was ahead of the pack. It debuted on the PlayStation 2 system, and it was directed by the legendary Keiichiro Toyama. You already know I'm butchering that. Siren had the player traveling from point A to point B, usually in pitch black darkness, but the game had a sight jack feature where you could look through the eyes of the enemies called the Shibito. It was very interesting. It was very, like, unnerving. I definitely did not really complete. I don't remember how far I got, but at one point I just kind of hit a brick wall. But if they remade it, made it a bit more modern, removed the weird level system where you just randomly played levels out of order, I think the game would be a really good game, kind of like the Silent Hill remake. But again, that's up for Sony to decide. They don't seem like they're ever coming back to that one, unfortunately. At number 8, we got Wild Arms. Now, what can I say about that one? The gameplay was peak RPG on the level of Final Fantasy. The games were turn-based and heavily featured weapons known as arms that spiced up combat with the inclusion of guns and ammo management. The blend of Old West aesthetic and fantasy with a touch of sci-fi separated it from its peers. You know, it was a good game. It was a great game. The music was great. It gave you a spaghetti western feel. There's nothing like it out there. Sony can definitely come back with that one, and with them releasing the Wild Arms games as ports through the PlayStation Plus service, now is as good a time as any to just remake the series from the ground up. At number 7, we got a stealth action series called Siphon Filter. I played a little bit of it back in the day, but I can definitely tell you it was up there with Metal Gear Solid. The games had you play as Gabe Logan, who was an agent who would go from mission to mission trying to attempt to stop a biological weapon known as the Siphon Filter from being distributed or used. It was great. It was stealthy. It had a mix of stealth and combat. You could totally just go through the game with combat, but there were certain sections that required stealth. It, surprisingly enough, is in the same universe as Days Gone, so if they ever wanted to bring Days Gone back, this would be an excuse to add some lore. But, you know, we'll see if it comes back. It is on PlayStation Plus, if you ever wanted to go take a look at it, so I totally recommend it. At number 6, we got MotorStorm. It wasn't just an off-road racing game, it was one of the greatest off-road racing games. The series had you racing off-road on islands, deserts, and even crumbling post-apocalyptic cities. Pretty cool, right? Gameplay involved balancing a turbo meter with a cooling system and not being turned on to scrap metal by opposing racers or environments. Meaning, you're going to be racing in the hottest humidity with nitrous coming out of the back of the vehicle. It's going to be great. You can explode at any point, but you use the mud and water of the different environments to cool your systems. It was pretty cool. I thought it was very unique. It was... Honestly, I can't think of a single off-road game that was at that one. It had invigorating, just high adrenaline racing, mud everywhere. It was great, and Sony really needs to bring it back. The only racing game they seem to be, utilizing is Gran Turismo, but there are other games, and I think they should definitely look into their backlog and just, appease all of the different genres and stuff, just really get in there. But on to our number 5. What would a PlayStation list be without the PlayStation's number 1 shooter? We got Killzone. The series is surprisingly enough, it is a first-person cover shooter. There are not a lot of those. It utilized the L1 button or the R1 button to take cover and shoot behind corners and stuff. And it was pretty good. It had like a basic plot, kind of by the numbers Marines versus space Nazis, which is kind of like Star Wars, but it was like way cooler than Star Wars. The game was done well though. It included action set pieces that never failed to keep you on the edge of your seats with profanity that would make your mother cry. But the main villains were the main selling point. They were really cool Nazi dudes with gas masks, and I gotta say, like, I've got a few action figures of them, and it's the main selling point. I think Sony should really utilize, like, everything from that. There is not a game like it on the market. They really need to get back in there. Now, number 4, this one's kind of interesting because there is a TV show about this one. It is Twisted Metal. I know a lot of people might have grown up with this one. The series hasn't had a new game since 2012, and I do gotta say they need to bring it back. It's a crazy concept, guys. What if I told you that it was a demolition game with crazy vehicles, with special abilities, a new metal soundtrack, and a psychopathic clown with flaming hair driving an ice cream truck that can turn into a giant robot? That is just... That is a mouthful, if I do say so myself, but it pulls it off nicely. Now, honestly, other than Carmageddon, I gotta say it was probably like the best demolition game or car combat game of the time. And it honestly needs to come back. It has come back again with PlayStation Plus, but it hasn't had a new entry since 2012, with that one being a bit it was kind of a far cry from the usual formula. But if Sony can bring this one back, it would get a lot of the fans from the TV show into the video games, and I think it would be very good for marketing and just tons of other stuff. But yeah, that's that one. Honestly, it's can you put Sweet Tooth in Astrobot, bro? I've been asking for the longest time, bro. Come on now. Anyways, on to our number 3. Now this one hasn't seen the light of day since the PS3 era. We have Sly Cooper. Now, the series started on the PlayStation 2, and it is a stealth action game where you play as a raccoon named Sly Cooper, and you have a gang of animals that are part of your group. And you would switch between them, and there'd be missions to do, kind of a wide open area for you to explore and rob people. And it was pretty good. A lot of people loved it. I certainly loved it. I think that there is a spot in PlayStation for the game, as it is also on PlayStation Plus. So, if you wanted to give it a try, you could be it on PlayStation Plus. It did have a movie/potential TV show tie-in back in the day, like around 2016, 2017, before that was canceled. It still can definitely make a big stir in today's day and age. Again, there's nothing like that, minus maybe like, I don't know, Assassin's Creed is the closest thing I could think of. But again, OGs know about Sly Cooper. It was great. So, Sony, come on, bro. Bring it back. Bring back the game. Just erase the fourth game from existence. There is no fourth game. There's just 1 through 3. Remember that. Anyways, guys, on to our number 2 spot. This one's, I almost put this on number 1, but we're looking at Ape Escape, guys. Debuting on the PlayStation 1, this one was unique. It had you playing as a little boy named Spike, and you'd be catching monkeys. They're mind-controlled monkeys from a helmet, but they're still like monkeys. But it was unique, you know. It was very big in Japan, and I don't even know what to say. It had you traveling through a time machine, stopping this evil monkey named Spectre from taking over the planet through time shenanigans. And I gotta say, the gameplay loop was interesting. It utilized both the analog sticks, so it had 2 analog sticks, and you'd use the right one to whack people with your little lightsaber and stuff. And I gotta say, it was, for its time, probably, I thought it was better than Mario 64. If I'm being completely honest, graphically, it was a lot more detailed. It was a lot more. It was just a better game, in my honest opinion. And I think Sony, because of Astrobot, there is a dedicated level on there which has new stuff. So I'm thinking maybe port the rest of the Ape Escape games to PlayStation, and then maybe you guys can work on a new game. I have a slight feeling that's what they're going to do. I don't know who's going to make the game. I'm thinking Team Asobi or something, but with Sony allowing third-party people to make their stuff and licensing them out to stuff, let's look at Patapon and, I don't know, everybody's golf. This one can definitely happen, and I honestly think in the new state of play, this one might be announced, you know, my personal opinion. Now, to nobody's surprise, the number 1 is going to have to be Jak and Daxter. Now, this series started off kind of almost like a successor to Crash Bandicoot. You had the twirling, you had the jumping, you had the boxes, and it was started off like that. Eventually, the series kind of like learned from Ratchet and Clank and became more of an action series with crazy weaponry, well-developed characters, a great plot, a kickin' soundtrack, and again, it had the funniest sidekick I've ever seen in a video game. For real, they need to make another one of these. I think I speak for almost every PlayStation player on the planet. This needs to come back. There needs to be a reboot, and then they need to make a sequel to the 3rd game, because you can't just leave us hanging there. That's just uncool, Sony. I've waited my whole life for a new Jak and Daxter game. You got to give it to us. So that was the list. I know didn't include a lot of titles you might think I might include, but I have a honorable mentions right here. So let me bring that up right now. By the way, if you enjoyed the video, you know what's up. Just like, hit me up, comment, subscribe. You already know what's going on. But I'm going to leave these honorable mentions here, and I'm going to get out of here, guys. Later.
You know they are there. But first, you have to find them. Use your PSP camera to hunt monsters lurking in the real world. Track them. Capture them. Collect and trade over 200 different kinds of Invisimals. Level up your Invisimals and battle against your friends. Yes! Interact with your PSP for special moves. Shake up an earthquake. Blow up a snowstorm. Send down a lightning strike. Invisimals. What will you find?
here, beyond which lies the treasure of the ages.
There's some writing here. It's not good news. It says that beyond this door is tremendous danger.
Now, how long will it take us to get there?
We're going there?
What are you doing in my village?
I brought help!
I think I'm the key. What are you trying to accomplish, Victor? World conquest?
Nothing so mundane, I assure you.
We won't rest until every human is dead.
Someone could get hurt.
Oh no. We've got company.
Stop him.
Is Red bad? Oh yeah, Red's bad.